I'm going to call the meeting to order then, and I will start by reading these lengthy opening remarks. As a preliminary matter, my name is not Brian Colleran. I am Ben Gahagan. I am Vice Chair of the Newbury Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Conservation Commission members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ben Gahagan, aye. Dan Streeter.
Here.
Peter Pecos.
Yes.
Town staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Samantha Holt.
Yes.
And Martha Taylor.
Yes.
Good evening. This May 24th, 2022 open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30, section 20 until July 15th, 2022. This order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference, and the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting materials were provided to the commission members prior to the meeting for review and were posted to the Conservation Commission webpage for public access. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and, if needed, share information to the screen. Please state your intention after you have been called. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, as chair tonight, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of commission members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, for all attendees except commission members and staff, please remember to mute your computer using the mute button or your phone using *6 to toggle mute unmute when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds or earphones when you're using a tablet or a cell phone. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If commission members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. For public comment, there will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After commission members have spoken, we will afford the public an opportunity to comment and/or ask questions as follows. First, Samantha will seek questions and comments through the Zoom raise hand function. For video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the yellow hand that appears. If you don't see a yellow hand, click on the participants button. A list of participants will open and display on the right. At the bottom of this participant area, you'll see an option to click on a raise hand button. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You can rename yourself by using the More function next to your name. Telephone participants, to raise your hand in a Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone keypad. We will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they are listed, which is determined by the order in which people click on the raise hand function. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address and then ask a question or make a comment. I will afford the applicant, participant, or his or her representative the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. We will then continue down the list of those in the raise hand column and again afford the participant, applicant, representative an opportunity to speak. Please note that the chat feature has been disabled for this meeting. Please also note that everyone is expected to conduct themselves in the same manner they would at an in-person meeting. Any disruptions will be addressed once by the chair and should be acknowledged by the disruptor. Any further disruptions will result in the complete removal from the meeting with no readmittance. Vulgar or obscene actions or comments will result in immediate removal from the meeting with no readmittance. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Now we will turn to the agenda. Just for everyone's information, our next regularly scheduled meeting date is June 7th of 2022. And we have an upcoming special meeting date. I assume that's for the bylaws, Samantha?
Yes.
On June 21st, 2022. Sam, I apparently put in minutes for the May 3rd meeting.
You what?
Did you put meetings for May 3rd, 2022 in the Dropbox?
Yes. Yep. They've been in there since at least before last week.
Okay. Dan or Pete, did either of you have a chance to review those?
I did.
Yep.
How do we feel about them?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote. Dan,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
I will also vote yes. Great job, Sam.
Thanks.
Okay, before we move to the public hearings, there are 2 items on our other business for commission discussion: vacant seats.
Yes. So we currently have 2 open seats on the commission right now. Brad and Frank have both resigned from their respective positions on the commission. So we are down 2 members. And come July, we will be down for sure at least 1 more, bringing us down to 4 members. So the commission is currently looking for volunteers to serve on the board. If anybody has anyone in mind that is interested, or if you are interested, you can reach out to me directly and I can give you some more information and we can chat about it. Or if you want to bypass me entirely and just put in your letter of interest, that will get sent to Julie O'Brien, who is the admin assistant for the select board. All letters of interest have to be submitted, I believe, by June 21st to get appointments ready. And then new members will be appointed on June 28th, I believe, the select board meeting. That's all.
All right, thank you, Sam. Moving down the agenda to the Caldwell Farm Trail Agreement. Martha, are you here for that one?
I am.
All right, take the floor, please.
All right. So as some, but probably not all of you know, back in 2004, the planning board granted an OSRD, open space residential development special permit to Alan Berry for the Caldwell Farm development. As part of that approval, the applicant was actually awarded a couple of extra units for the open space and for a trail easement through that open space. A trail easement document was written up and recorded, and there was a plan showing a kind of a hatched general trail easement area through the site, but the trail has actually never been constructed yet. I think Dan will remember we had some meetings and some site walks, and part of it was actually blazed by our former conservation agent, Doug Packer. There were also some discussions with the Caldwell Farm people. And over time, we have, with the help of town council, drafted a trail easement operation agreement to go along with the trail easement documents. So that's the document that you have before you tonight. Basically reflects the history of the easement and operation of things like dawn to dusk, no motorized vehicles, carry in, carry out kinds of things. And also lays out a general path for the trail, which will be no less than 100 feet from the back of the units and no less than 25 feet from the wetlands. This is what was negotiated over time. There is one location where the wetlands push the trail closer than 100 feet to the back of the units. And at that location, there's proposed to be a split rail fence, which the Caldwell Farm people will provide funding for. So the Caldwell Farm Condominium Trust did sign the agreement on April 27th. And so it's now coming to you to sign. Once this is done, we can actually get out there and lay out the trail and follow up with any required permitting that's needed, whether it's an RDA or notice of intent or what else. So as you can see, it does form a U through the property. There are proposed 3 or 4 parking spaces along Elm Street. And we'll go in, there's a knoll where you see that kind of oval shape. There's a knoll that is walkable. or people can traverse the entire trail and come out on Elm Street at the other side of the Caldwell Farm property next to the single-family residence that's there, sort of where this current septic system is. You can see the heavy dashed dot line that indicates the location of the approximate location of the fence, the split rail fence. They've requested 3 sign locations, one at the 2 access points from Elm Street, and it also gets very close to the trail that's on the governor's property. So they've also requested a sign there, which the town will provide. There are, as you can see, sort of five wetland crossings through the site. My recollection is when we walked it before, and Dan, you may remember, I think they were all dry crossings. The intention is that this will be a primitive walking trail, and all at grade, no bridges. So pretty simple. It's just for passive recreation, not for active recreation. And that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions. So the request would be to have the board vote to sign the agreement, and then one of you will need to have your signature notarized.
And Ben, I believe that would either be you or Brian. I believe Brian can sign it, even though he's not here, if it gets passed by the commission, if it gets approved. But it would be either you or him to get the notarized signature, which you can do here at the town hall with the clerk.
Yep, I can come in and do that tomorrow even. So it's not a problem. If we approve it.
And I do have the original here, so I can certainly make that available for signature.
Dan, do you have any questions?
No.
Pete?
Nope, I understand it's been a good process, and it looks like we're going to bring it to its conclusion.
Excellent. I also do not have any questions. So this not being a public hearing, I can go ahead and entertain a motion from the
Motion to accept and approve.
Second.
roll call vote. Dan,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
and yes for myself. So hopefully tomorrow morning around 8:30, I will see you, Sam, and we can, and Martha, I guess, will you two be in the morning?
Yes,
Yeah. So I'll try and come by in the morning, get you the notarized signature.
okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. It's been a
No problem.
long process, so it's nice to get to this point.
Thank you, Martha.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Martha.
All right, I will bow out and go to the select board meeting now. So thank you for taking me early.
Not a problem. Enjoy. All right, we will move to the public hearing section of the agenda. We begin with Maureen Heffernan, 11 Adams Lane, file number NCC-396, a request for determination of applicability for work to remove 2 dead hazard trees.
All right, and I believe, unless she is in here under a different name, I don't believe Maureen was going to be able to make it tonight. So I'm going to present this one for her. Basically, long story short, she's got a couple of hazard trees, very large, very dead trees on her property. Sorry, one second. That I have photos of here somewhere. So this is where the trees are located in respect to her house. The 2 trees right here, and a couple of photos of them. So as you can see, they're very, very large, very, very dead trees. And she did have an arborist come out, and he inspected them and gave her this email stating that he did believe that they were hazard trees and believed that they should be removed to prevent risk and damage to life and property. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Daniel?
Sam, did you go out to the site?
I've seen the pictures of it. I didn't get a chance to actually get out there. But I've talked to her about the trees and everything, and I've seen all the pictures that she sent me. I mean, they're definitely, definitely not in good shape, and they are close to the house.
I think, you know, where my only possible reservation is just that circumstances will not allow them to be felled towards the upland side, or, you know what I'm saying? We don't even know how close they are to the wetland at this point, so.
So I did look into that, and I think I forgot to put, obviously the photos in, or the maps in the Dropbox, but I can bring up the.
So I think if we can, this is an RDA, we can go negative with conditions, and, you know, perhaps we can just recommend that those be felled towards the open area, or, you know, taken down piece by piece in such a way that there's no wetland disturbance.
Yep. And so the wetlands that she really has on the property, or that, you know, kind of come close to it, are all in this area on number 9. And I believe the 2 trees are kind of over in this area. So, and I believe like everything over here is kind of like open lawn space. So everything would be staged up kind of in this area.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can put the conditions on it to have them.
It's just a condition that, you know, if there's any chance of, you know, not being able to remove the trees without disturbing wetlands, that they need to call you. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I'm comfortable, no questions.
Yep, I'm agree with Dan, a simple condition that they be removed in a way that does not disturb the wetlands. The trees don't end up in the wetlands. Covers it. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak on this?
I'm not seeing any hands going up.
Me either.
Nobody.
Which
would-
case? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who will make a motion?
Who do issue negative determination with the conditions we've discussed?
Second,
Roll call. Dan,
Yes.
Pete,
yes.
yes for myself. Okay. Next up is Timothy Leonard, 4 Roy Avenue. File number NCC-397, a request for determination of applicability for work to install an 18 kilowatt generator. Is Mr. Leonard or a representative here?
We have anybody here for that?
I see Linda Wood connecting to audio, but
Hand up.
oh yeah, we got Generator
Yeah.
Supercenter has their hand up. Sam, no
Yeah.
video.
There you go. Well, you're unmuted.
You should be able to speak.
I think this should be Ashley here.
Okay, so looks like we have somebody here, but we cannot hear them. So
Do we want to skip this one for now and let them
yes,
figure out what's going on with that?
yep. I wish I even knew their name. Can they chat? The chat's been completed.
Yeah, the chat's not enabled.
Email you.
Yeah, Ashley, if you can hear me, if you want to give me a call and let me know what's going on over there, I can see if I can help you out.
So the next, we will move to Andrew Chess at 90 Northern Boulevard. File number NCC-398, a request for determination of applicability for work to install a home backup generator. Yep, I see Andrew Chess here. How are you doing, Mr. Chess?
Hi, I'm doing well, and I think that the contractor who's going to do the work can describe the work better than I can, but this is just so that we have backup electricity in case for running the heating system in case it's the winter time and we lose electricity.
Great.
Yes.
Mr. Patel.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yes, putting in a small backup generator, keeping it close to the residents, no trenching, and we're using screw-in pylons to raise the generator 2 feet above grade with no foundation, no cement being poured.
And I'll note that this is a very quiet generator.
All right. Sam, before we go to the commission members, do you have anything to add on this one?
Nope, I've seen this one. I don't have any concerns about it. Location or anything. I think it should be all set.
Dan?
No questions.
Pete?
Is this going to be a propane generator?
Correct.
So where is the propane tank going to be, or where is it now?
Yep, so the existing propane tank is in that front right-hand corner of the home. Yep, and we're gonna just run the propane line down the side of the house. And there is actually a deck connected right there to the back of the house, which we will also be connected to get to the generator. All will be elevated.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I do not have any further questions. So we can go to the members of the public. Is there anybody here with a comment or question about this matter? I'm still
not seeing anybody.
Not me either. In which case, Dan or Pete?
Move to approve with a negative determination.
Second.
Roll call vote. Dan?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Yes for myself as well. Good luck, Mr. Patel. Congratulations.
Thank you
very much.
All right,
Have a good evening.
you too.
All right.
And I did get a phone number that called in. I don't know if that's Ashley or not.
Hi, it's me.
There we
It's
go.
Ashley. I'm sorry. I decided to call in, I guess. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
That works. Okay, so we'll go back to Maureen Heffernan, 11 Adams Lane, file number
Nope,
NCC.
nope.
Oh, no?
Wrong
Poor
one.
Roy Ave.
Sorry, my fault. Yeah, Timothy Leonard,
Yes,
Roy Ave, NCC 397, a request for determination of applicability for work to install an 18 kilowatt generator.
yes. So we are gonna put the generator on a 2-foot platform as well. It is powered by natural gas, not liquid propane. And that's really all.
Sam's, are you feel the same way about this as the previous hearing? Anything to
Yep,
add?
no concerns about this one either.
Okay, Dan?
Oh, I don't know about the natural gas. I don't think it matters, but I didn't know
No,
that.
I think it's liquid propane now that I said it.
Yeah,
It is liquid propane. I'm sorry.
yeah. A lot of people would be excited if they had gas out on the island. No further questions.
Pete?
So I take it there's an existing propane tank already.
For the customer, I don't believe so, no. Let me see. I have all the pictures here.
I thought in the photos for this one that there were, I think I had some issues with.
Yes, there are. You're
some of
right.
the
The
photos.
township has propane tanks on site.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been dealing with so many installs.
So yes, there's propane tanks on site. Is that what I just heard?
Yes, you did. Yes, correct.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Satisfied, Pete?
Thank you. Yes.
Me too. All right. Anyone from the public here with a comment or question for Roy Avenue?
I have
Not seeing anything.
Yes, Tim?
So I'm just asking, I think we're talking with the installer, I believe, and just when you do these installations, does the gas, you have to get a gas permit? The inspector comes out? Or do you just
You have
put
to
it
get, you have to get both. You have to have the electrical and the gas inspector come out.
in? Okay. You know, and some of the, I think it would be worth adding a condition just that the installation and the propane tank should be installed in compliance with NFPA standards. You know, some of these tanks,
Okay.
you know, I have seen a bunch of tanks installed that look like they're not compliant. I'm just sort of,
So,
not trying to pick on you. It's just, that would be a condition, at least it would satisfy us, I think. If
so just that the fire department comes out and takes a look at it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, on tanks, there's been problems with, they're not secured to anything. If they're in a flood zone, they could just float away kind of thing with not very good things happening because of that. And I'm just, it's not a big deal, but I'm just sort of wondering if we should start adding a condition like that.
Actually, Dan, that's why I asked if it was, that was a concern I had, because if there was an existing tank, one would assume that it's appropriately permitted and approved. But I guess that's the assumption. That's a very good point. Thank you.
I'm all set.
Where it's, okay, where it's an existing tank, I mean, it's hard to tell what was already done. Usually when we do a generator install and someone's getting a tank that hasn't been placed yet, the propane company does pull their own permit, and they also have the fire department come out and take a look at the tank as well.
That's good to know.
Where it's an existing tank, though, that's already on site, I don't believe they'll have to do all that.
No,
That's a question for a propane company.
I understand. It's just whatever work you're doing gets a gas permit. The inspector has to come out and it gets approved. That's.
Yes, it does. Yeah, because we have a plumber that does the gas fitting work. And then the propane companies always tell us that they have to connect to, from the generator to the propane tank themselves. And they do not let us connect to the propane tank. So we do have to get our own separate inspection as doing the gas plumbing work for the generator.
All good to know. You know, I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion then. Pete, your microphone went out for some reason. You are unmuted, but.
Sorry, I had to push my microphone. Dan, go ahead. I mean, you're rolling. I could continue a second.
Okay. Move to issue. This is a RDA negative determination with, I don't know if you want to add that condition or not, or just let it go. I think we learned something by talking with the installer. So maybe that's all we need to know.
I think that we should probably just go with the permits and as we've been doing things. I'm a little wary of overstepping our jurisdiction on this one. And
No, move to issue negative determination with no conditions added.
Second,
roll call vote, Dan,
Yes,
Pete,
okay.
I was sure. I'll go sure. And yep, all set there. Thank you very much, Ashley. Thank you for battling through the technological issues.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank
You
you.
too.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Not quite. I was going to say this has been a very easy night, but Tom's about to start. Tom's just playing with you, Tom.
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's not about to start. Next, we have Martin Pacassi, 42 Middle Road, still unassigned DEP number.
Still. Yeah, and
No.
I just checked a little bit before before I got in here.
Okay. A notice of intent for work to construct a single-family home with septic system and wetland crossing for driveway installation. Work will include restoration and mitigation, continued from the May 3rd, 2022 meeting. My memory is that at that meeting, we were waiting.
We continue
for-
this to June.
I don't remember that. I remember that I thought the next step was that Mary and Mr. Seacamp were going to discuss the placement of flags.
So I did get in touch with Mike, and basically what he told me is that he was not working on the project. So he doesn't have anything to do with it, I guess. I actually am meeting Kristen Farr, and I believe Charlie is going to be out there too on Thursday to talk with them about the wetland flagging and stuff. So I do have a meeting set up with them. I haven't gotten anything new, and I don't see anyone here for them for this. So gonna go out on a limb and assume they're gonna want to continue it. I didn't get a formal continuance request for it though, so
I think we can be gracious.
but
and-
no one's here.
move to continue until June 7th, 7 p.m.
June 7th, second that.
Excellent. Dan,
Yes,
Pete,
Sure thing.
absolutely. So that is continued to June 7th. All right. Now, Tom, we have Gage Foley, 7 Bittersweet Lane.
Wait.
Unassigned-
I think you skipped one.
No.
Main Street. Anrad.
Oh, you did that before. Sorry. Yep, I did. I'm not doing great today. Sorry, folks. Okay. Nicole and Rita DiStefano, 1 and 3 Main Street, DEP number 050-1380, an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation to confirm delineations of bordering vegetated wetlands and intermittent stream. Continued from our May 3rd, 2022 meeting, and there has been a site walk between the two meetings.
There has, good evening, everyone. For the record, Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, representing the applicant for the NRAD filed for 1 and 3 Main Street. That's correct. We did have a site visit. Mary was out there, Brian and Dan. We took a look at all the wetland flags. We did identify the ponded area as being a vernal pool. So we had our surveyors go back and locate the limits of the pool. We added the boundary to the plan, put a revision date on it, and I think everything should be in place at this point to hopefully close the hearing. But I'd be happy to go through it and answer any questions the commission might have.
Thanks, Greg.
Do you guys want me to pull up the plan? Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Since I wasn't able to make this one, I'm going to take a back seat to Sam or Dan if there's anything that they feel like Pete and I should know.
I wasn't able to make it to the site walk either, so.
Oh, Dan,
well, I know that I know that Mary, I think, indicated it by email that she felt the wetland line itself was accurately depicted. You know, the vernal pool discovery. I'm pretty sure this is what was discussed at the site visit, but I'm not exactly certain, but maybe Greg, you could just sort of explain how you came up with that vernal pool line.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So if anybody's ever driven by this site, there's usually always water in this area. Ponds more often than not, before entering a 15-inch culvert that goes under the road and flows eventually into the Parker River. But this does dry up late summer. It's free of adult fish populations, and it did have multiple egg masses, spotted salamander, and there were wood frog tadpoles. So more than enough evidence to call it a vernal pool. Our surveyors were out there within 2-3 days after our site visit, and the water had dropped. Actually, even during our site visit, we could see that it typically ponds higher than where the water was. So we had our surveyors locate the edge of silt-stained leaves, not the edge of water. Things are pretty dry right now, so it just made more sense to do that. So if anything, the line should be slightly conservative, but we're certainly comfortable calling it a vernal pool. I don't think we could argue that it's not.
That's refreshing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to find, I'm almost scared to look, but where are we? Because the Parker has a nearby stream gauge. And so, yeah, and have been well below the even the 20, yeah, we're running below the 25th percentile right now. Low, it's 13.4 CFS, and the 25th percentile is 21. So yeah, groundwater flows, all that are really low this spring. So it's great that you did that.
And it's a pretty obvious edge, right where A32 and A29 are. It's the corner of an old horse paddock. And what happens there is that intermittent flow comes down from the up near B8, B9. It travels down through an intermittent stream channel. And then it makes the corner near the old horse paddock before entering that ponded area. So it's a large wetland system, but the area that actually holds water is very well defined.
Yeah, I think I've actually seen wood ducks in there more than once driving by.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, Greg, my only reservation here is that, I wish that Brian or Mary were here. But if Dan, if you don't think there's any issues coming out of that weren't addressed by the revisions.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't recall any flags coming into question. I think Greg has been pretty generous in flagging that channel affair, intermittent wetland area, which, I think it's a pretty fair representation of what's really out there.
And I did chat with both Brian and Mary after this. And the only thing that Mary mentioned to me was the addition of the vernal pool. She had said that the wetland lines were all good to go. So the vernal pool was really the only thing that she said needed to be added, which obviously it has been. So
great. Okay. Peter, you have anything you want to ask?
No, I don't think. Thanks.
Is there anyone from the public tonight on this matter? Is there a comment or a question?
Do not see anybody.
Me either. So I will entertain a motion from the commission.
So if we have to close the public hearing, vote to close the public hearing and issue the order of resource area delineation based upon the plan, whatever the date is that we're looking at now.
May 23rd.
Dan, I shall second you.
Roll call vote. Dan,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes.
I will also vote yes.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Greg. Really appreciate that.
Have a good night.
You too. All right. Thank you, Sam, for keeping me on the rails. Now we'll go to Gage Foley, 7 Bittersweet Lane, unassigned DEP number, a notice of intent for the construction of a new single-family home with septic system and associated site work continued from May 3rd, 2022, and it's new background art. Love it.
There we go. Good evening, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental. We did send in a continuance request on this one. We still don't have the DEP file number. We have updated the plans with wetland flags from the site visit, and Steve Sawyer has revised the septic to move it further away from the wetlands. But our plan is to come in and hopefully close it out at the next meeting with a DEP file number. And we also have 4 consecutive days with no flow, and now the channel is basically dry. So much to nobody's surprise, except maybe DEP's. So with that, I'll formally request a continuance in person in addition to the written one.
move to continue to June 7th, 7 p.m.
Second, thank you, Dan.
Dan,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes.
yes for myself as well. Next, Ben Laguerre, 10 10th Street, DEP number 050-1378, and notice of intent to replace 2 single-family homes on the existing lot, one of which is destroyed by fire, with new single-family homes constructed on piles, continued from May 3rd, 2022.
Okay, likewise, we've requested continuance. They're still working their way through zoning. So we're trying to get through zoning and then come back to you with a clean plan. So we've asked for a continuance to the next meeting.
move to continue till June 7th, 7 p.m.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote in reverse. Pete,
yes.
Dan,
Yes,
and myself also yes. Get everybody on their toes. And our final matter, David Manti, 0 Pine Island Road, lot /lot 5, DP number 050-1330. A notice of intent to construct a dock, pier, ramp, and floating dock within Salt Marsh Resource Area and ACEC, continued from May 3rd, 2022.
Okay, good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. Here with me tonight is Steve Sawyer, who is the civil engineer that we brought in. As the commission may recall, at our last hearing, it was requested that we actually get a stamped engineered plan, because the prior plan done by a surveyor did have a note, a sort of disclaimer note, because surveyors don't do design. So Steve's here to answer any questions about the design, and the client David Manti's here. What I'd like to do is present those plans to you, try to answer any questions about the design or the project as a whole. And then what we would like to do would be then to have you guys draft a decision, try to keep the hearing open, because I know Mary isn't here tonight and is interested in reviewing the tape. I'd like to give her an open hearing at the next meeting in case there are any questions or follow-up. In addition, if Sam between now and the next meeting is working on a decision, having the hearing open allows her to ask us for additional information if she comes across something that is obvious that would help in the process of closing this out. But our goal is to get a vote at that next meeting. And I hope you'll all be there and give us a bunch of sures and okays and however you want to phrase it. Anyway, so with that said, what I'd like to do is share the screen and pull up the plans that were submitted.
And we do have Brian here now, just in case. I'm sure a lot of you have seen him come in, but he is here.
And thank you, Brian. I know you weren't attending tonight. I appreciate you being here for this.
Just
So,
for you, Tom, just for you.
well, thank you. So the plan may look familiar. It really didn't change a lot. What changed was we had the engineer go through it, and Steve went through and provided more detail and in the profile views on the helix system that's being used, and just kind of beefed up the detail on the plan a little bit. But overall, nothing's really changed in terms of the project. We are still in order to get some structural stability with posts that are installed by hand. We're still proposing the L shape, which allows us to not have a big platform, but still provide some structural stability in a couple different directions. We're still using through flow decking. We are still proposing that we have a gate with a lock and provide access to that lock to any legitimate government entity or research entity to be able to access the salt marsh. And Mr. Manti continues to allow various groups who are doing pepperweed control to access the property for that purpose as well. So with that said, I think what you're looking at is an extremely sensitive design. It's something that's far more sensitive than the design of a research station that you guys authorized under an RDA, with less impact than that. And I think it's the best design that we can accomplish for this site and give Mr. Manti, access to his property, for which the only legal access he's got is via boat. So Steve, I don't know if there's anything you want to add about the design, or if we just want to go right to the commission with questions.
Tom, I think you covered it. We did add details for how we're founding it with it's a typical augered in pile. Can be done. You don't need a large, can be done by hand. We wanted to minimize excavation and disturbance, so we utilize those. And other than that, there was just additional details for the deck system. It's very small, about as small as you can get. And as Tom mentioned, to give it some rigidity between the XY axis, we're providing that L shape. But that's about it.
And I will also mention that the intent with the perimeter control is it's going to be installed during the sort of tide cycle that we're working in, and then we're not really disturbing the ground much. So I don't think we're not going to leave that in for multiple tide cycles if we can avoid it. Maybe a couple, and it would be staked in well, but I don't want to leave erosion control out in the salt marsh for very long, because we don't want to scar it. But we do show the perimeter control in place. And I do want to remind the commission that what we have committed to is during installation, we'll make minor adjustments to make sure those posts are not going to be going directly onto vegetation. So with that, I'd be happy to open it up to any questions you may have.
Great, thanks, Tom. I know I, for one, was really happy to see that DEP was going to be adding research activities as a restoration activity in the new projects when they revise things. So I don't think they're apples and apples projects, but nice of you to bring it up. Anybody on the commission have any questions for Tom or Steve?
Yes, if I could. Could you tell me a little bit about the ramp and what sort of clearance to ground you are looking for there?
Right. Okay. So let me zoom in here. Where's my? So this section here, which is part of the structure, is only 2 feet wide. So we maintain the 1.5 to 1 clearance as we go down. And then what is drawn here is the gangway, basically at a lower situation with the tide. So we're looking at full clearance of the bank. We kind of step down so that we don't have to go further out into the channel with the float, with a longer gangway and something that can be easily brought in and out of the site. Steve, I don't know, is there anything you want to add about the clearance that I'm missing?
No, I think you got it.
So the way I look at that is the legs are shown at mean tide. The tide goes out below zero. If it's mean high water is 4.1, mean low has got to be minus 4.1. And that's what you show with you're showing the bottom there at about, 3 or 4. So what all I'm getting at is this really an accurate representation? I think you still have some clearance if you drop those legs, the float all the way down to ground, but it's going to be quite close to the bank as it's depicted in this. Unless I'm completely wrong, I have to be corrected, Steve.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're picking up. I'll check. I think it sounds as if I'll double check that section. Because I think in plan view, it appears that the bank, the ridge of the bank is closer to the launching point. Right here. Oh, I guess there is a, I'll check on that section carefully.
All right.
And what I can do is I can redo the section, show another one with the float, with the skid stops resting on the mud, and just ensure that we get that clearance there. I see what you're saying. I see what you picked up there.
So Steve, if we had to, you could lift this a little bit.
Yeah, I could lift that. Instead of dropping, I could lift that a bit, and which would help.
Right. I mean, in reality, we normally like to not have it be too steep at a low tide, but I doubt people are going to be walking up and down that a lot at a low tide. So I think we can afford to have a slightly steeper ramp at low tide if you want to lift that up.
Yeah.
So we can look at that, Dan, and we can provide the profile at a low tide event as an update. And if we have to, tweak the design here to make sure we've got good clearance, we'll do that.
So is it through flow decking on that ramp?
Yes. Yeah.
That wasn't clear to me, but
yeah, through flow on the entire structure. We haven't specified it on the gangway, but we can get a gangway with through flow, so we can do that too.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to get the details figured out here.
Right.
And then this is really kind of a question for Steve. What do you think that float is going to be stable with a ramp landing on one side of it? And let's just say you have a 200-pound man in the middle of that ramp, all the weight's going to be on one side. And I'm just sort of wondering if you've kind of looked into the stability of that float. I mean, it would just change the positioning of it slightly. I don't really know. I just looks like it could be unstable.
Yeah, I think the weight of the float and the pressure, I'll look at that also. I'll check that, but I didn't, just from past designs and such, we haven't run into that issue.
Okay.
And we've landed on similar size floats before.
Okay. And then the only other question I have is just, is it anticipated that a vessel will be moored on this float frequently through low tides? I mean, it's going to ground out.
Yeah, no, I mean, a boat would ground out as it would if somebody were visiting without the thing. I would think the more common thing would be somebody comes sort of on the incoming and leaves on the outgoing. But Mr. Manti, do you intend to sort of be there through a low tide cycle on a regular basis, or what's your thought?
I most likely won't be there at low tide. I got a 14-foot boat. It's not a big, huge 30-foot boat. I usually go out there with a kayak. It makes it easier to get out of the kayak using the float. And I could always put the kayak on the float if I had to, so it doesn't go in the mud. But in that particular area, I have not seen it lower than 2 feet where this float is going. The few times I've been there. So I don't think a kayak would even hit the bottom of the river. And I did speak to the harbor master, and he says it doesn't obstruct Little Pine Creek because Pine Creek is wide enough for any boats to go through. And he said he didn't have an issue with it if the board didn't have an issue with it.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I do want to add, I mean, the most likely boats that would be accessing this are going to be the smaller boats and inflatables and kayaks. So. And typically the kind of folks that we're looking at giving access to, to the gate are going to be having fairly sensitive boats to the environment. I mean, we're looking at giving access to Fish and Wildlife, marine fisheries, the Greenbelt folks. I don't see any of them showing up in a triple engine power boat. Although maybe the marine fisheries budget will go up for
Probably not. Probably not. Pete, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just the gangway, is that going to be a aluminum design, Tom or Steve, or has that been thought out yet?
Steve?
It could be either a ramp of this size could be either it could either be aluminum. They can fabricate them aluminum. Most likely it will be aluminum.
So it's going to be removable at the end of the season then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So is there kind of a thought process as to what size boat's going to be taking that out and how it's going to be lifted and all that? Have we gotten that far yet?
So well, something like this, typically what happens is on a sort of higher tide, a king tide or higher tide, they'll come in, slide the gangway onto the float, and then just tow the float. And it's usually a fairly small float mover, and it will be brought to either the Cashman or to the Newbury boat ramp for removal. And certainly, we talked, I think, at prior hearings about we're certainly open to, conditions that it be, obviously not stored in the salt marsh, that the gangway and the float be removed, seasonally, and that we talked about other things, just to remind the commission, annual photographs reported to the commission. If any, impact to the marsh is noted, that we would come in with an approach to either fix it or adjust the design or do what we had to do to prevent that. So we're certainly open to having this be very strictly regulated. And, we're just trying to give Mr. Manti the access to the property and doing it in as sensitive a way as we can.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Brian,
Ben,
good to see you. What do you got?
I'm just going through sort of answering my own questions a little bit, and I'm just looking at the float, on the elevational chart, and seeing the slope of the structure, the sort of the first two legs of it being on a little bit of a downslope, and just wondering about how much you could move to and from the center line, of the waterway, from the zero, is, it looks like, we're at sort of like the 5-foot mark on this measuring set. On the plans from the 5 to the 9-foot line or something like that. Because what I'm wondering about has to do with sort of as the tide goes out with a little bit of a downward elevation, you're going to end up potentially sort of excavating around the legs of this thing. But it's a really mild grade as well. So anyway, so Tom, maybe do you want to address that sort of circular logic in one direction or another?
Yeah, well, there's two things. One is, as Steve has talked about, he's going to just double check the slope design and everything to make sure that we're not creating an issue, here with the bank. And we'll have that done in short order and get that into you guys. The use of the float skids on a float like this, first of all, as it drops down, your water moving through there is not moving at an enormous clip. It really shouldn't create any kind of scour issues. We're using these skids, which essentially diffuse the pressure on the sediment, so that you really don't have any impact from compression, from the dock itself as it rests, to be kind of elevated above the substrate. And I've seen plenty of dock installations, and the ones with the skids, I have not seen scour or that type of thing on the substrate around the floats. I've certainly seen the substrate washing around when you have sort of faster moving waters and you have the float sitting right on the mud.
Well, Tom, that's good to hear. Although I was thinking more about the pile more than the float.
Oh, the pile. So this here.
Sorry, I'm looking at the plan on my own screen. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So the
those two piles.
Right. So these are in the vegetated area where there's root structure, and these are, as I said, they're going to be placed to try to avoid any vegetative impacts. But the root structure here will be holding that salt marsh together pretty darn well. And I've certainly not seen any scour around posts on docks like this.
And Tom, just so I know, what is that, like a 2-degree slope that you've got there, or something a little more than that? I mean, it looks super minor, obviously.
You're talking right here?
Yeah, that angle.
Steve, do you want to take a guess? I mean, you've got 0 plus 30, 0 plus 40.
So you get 10 feet, and what do we have? About
a foot?
A foot. So that's 10. Yeah. So, or about a half foot. It's like a 5. It looks like it's about a 5, 3 to 5% slope there. And it's as far as the section, it just samples what we have for the survey. It's computer generated. And as far as, you're not going to have, it's any water movement at that time. It's slack high. So you get, it's running into high and running out of high. Typically it's slack high. The currents aren't, you really not, it's not like you're going to have water rushing down that slope. It's just going to slowly recede. Right. So there's really not much current or velocities encountered when you're, an hour either side of high.
Right.
Tide.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was it's circular logic, admittedly. And
yeah.
My own questions, but
okay.
Other question I had, I'm looking at the silt sock.
Yep.
What is going to be in the silt sock? Regular Filtrex spec? I mean, like, is this going to be sort of off the Abishan's yard and just, take it as is, or it's going to be a special fill, or,
That's actually a really good question, Steve. As we've been presenting this, one of the things I'm thinking, this may be one of those places where I actually prefer a wattle. That's something that will be easy to put in and take out.
Oh, a straw wattle, a lighter.
Right. Yep. Yeah, Brian, that's a good question, because
that's kind of heavy. Yeah, the Filtrex is heavy, that compost material.
Right. I mean, we'd have to have it specially made with a coconut fiber, and at that point you might as well just use a straw wattle, because it's basically the same thing.
Or I mean, like this might be ridiculous because I don't know anyone who does this, right? But like, would salt marsh hay work? You-
Yeah, I mean, first of all, salt marsh hay, if the commission was okay with it, you could basically spread it around as a thatch, and the tides would take care of it when you were done with it. The thing I don't like about it is it's got a bigger footprint, and
Well, and
if
it's
the
got
bales-
bigger gaps between the hay.
Right, but it's I guess what I don't want to do is scar the marsh with the erosion control and be sort of counterproductive.
Right.
And what we're doing is going to have such minimal, in fact, almost no soil disturbance. I don't know that we even need perimeter controls, but it's a BMP that I think we need to show. But these way these things turn into the soil, they don't really disturb it. They kind of slice their way in and just go down, and they barely scar the surface. So while I think it's important that we have something, I think before the next meeting, I think the other thing we would change is make that into wattles, because the wattles, even after they've been exposed to water, can be easily cut into like 10-foot segments, put onto a boat and taken out of there. And one other thing I do want to mention is when I did the field work on this, one of the days I was there, it was actually at an extremely high tide. We planned it that way, and there really is no current at all in that water, as it just smears in very, very slowly, and it smears out. I certainly don't think there'd be any risk of any kind of scour or anything around those posts.
Yeah, so my worry about the posts and the scour would have to do with, let's just say you drill right through the center of the grass patch and you kill or impact that grass in just an immediate vicinity, right? You don't need much exposure to have a drill of current going down, but at the same time, I much to the chagrin of myself, I don't know why you need the erosion control.
Yeah, we'd be happy to remove it from the plan. I'm saying I kind of question having it, but I feel like it probably, it's a good idea to be prepared in case something doesn't go the way you expect it to. But I mean, the way these things go in to the ground, there really shouldn't be any soil disturbance.
My own solution to both of these questions at the same time, I don't know how you regulate it. I don't know if it works, etc. This is spitballing a little bit. I apologize, Ben, and everybody else for spitballing. Would it work to get a bale of hay or some smaller unit, a half bale or a quarter bale?
Yep.
Just insert the helical pile through the bale of hay?
I think more effective would be to have a bale of hay or two on the boat that you go out to when you do the installation, and immediately after the piles are installed, you just sort of tamp some down with your foot around the outside of each pile.
Right, because the erosion problem, the scour problem, the interaction, the interplay there is going to be at the piles. It's not going to be on your perimeter. This isn't like you're going to have.
No, that's a good
around
point.
do an excavation.
Right. No, it's a good point. But the way the water smears in and out of there, I would hazard to guess that even exposed soil is really not going to travel very far. It really does smear in there. And Ben, I'm sure you've been out in the marsh as the tide comes in and you're on those big flat areas. It really isn't moving in that area. It almost creeps up on you.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It depends what the stage is, but I think that my worry over the long run about those first three sets of, you have like left to right, the 5 sets of piles moving longitudinally. Those first couple sets that are going to be in that kind of semi-vegetated, already sloughing off part of the marsh. as best I can tell from the aerial imagery and being out there.
Yeah, that's actually this area that you're thinking of. We're clearing that. This is because we're staying above mean high.
Yeah.
We're actually at the shelf above that.
Okay, you are not into that darker. I was trying to look at, you know, your plan.
Yeah, actually, the vegetation changes around mean high, right? It
Right,
drops
right.
off, and that's part of the challenge we've got with that clearance of the shelf, is we're trying to clear that area that you're talking about.
Yep.
And all of this is in that sort of firmer flat area, and it does like start to drop by about 6 inches, but then it really does accelerate as you start hitting these contours here.
Yeah, it's just my worry is long term for those first 2 sets of pilings.
Right, we're you know, half of the ramp back from where it really starts to go down.
Yep. It's you go 1 year, you know, you go out there and 1 year everything looks good, and then next year, you know, 3-4 feet in, something's clumped off and fallen in. So that's just the long term fate of this marsh with sea level rise.
Right, I mean, that's how the marsh responds to it, is chunks
Right.
fall off and the ice brings it back up and spreads it out. Unfortunately, you know, we're not adding enough height to the marsh in that process right now because of it.
I don't think I don't know if it's going to go back the other way either, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So-
no, I mean, that gets off into the whole, you know, thin layer deposition.
Yeah, no, I just think
So-
you know, it's not anything you can address or I'm saying you should address. I just think over the you know, a longer term, yeah, a lot of
I don't,
like a lot of things we see here, they're maybe not well thought out for 50 to 80 year time horizons. And you know, that's fine.
I don't know if it's worth mentioning now. And Brian, if you want to chime in on this one too, since it was kind of your idea to throw this in there. I've been working on, you know, drafting some conditions, just so that we can have an idea of what kind of conditions we would be looking at in the event of an approval. And one of the conditions that Brian had mentioned putting in there was kind of like a perpetual one that factors in for changes in sea level, whether it be up or down. And even though you would assume that, you know, any person with a dock would want to maintain compliance with the regulations, we threw an idea out there to put a perpetual condition in that states that the dock has to remain in compliance, show basically that no permanent structures can be below the mean high water line. And if in the event of a change in sea level, all the owner, whether it be Dave or anyone after him, you would just basically just have to come into the commission and say, here's my proof that mean high water has changed in one direction or the other. I need to move the permanent structures up, down, left, right, whatever, wherever.
Yeah, I think, well, first, I think we can simplify that a little bit and just basically say that in the annual pictures, that they not just be of the structure, but also the area between the structure and the floats. And if there's a discernible change in the shoreline, that the applicant has to come back in with a design modification, or perhaps an adjustment of the location further landward to adapt to any changes. And I think that would be something, like you say, I mean, if Mr. Manti or you know, whoever owns the property in out years wants to maintain the structure, you know, and if in 20 years that thing has started cleaving off all along the entire shoreline of the creek there, then it's going to make sense to want to move it back and lift up the height and do whatever. So however you want to word it, I think it gets complicated if you start talking about basing it on mean high water. I think it should be based on changes in the environment in which this is being placed. It's going into a salt marsh, which is a dynamic environment. And you don't see it move day to day most days, but over time it moves around in the same way that like a dune moves around in a geologic time. And I think we're going to see over the next 20 to 50 years, a lot of changes in the salt marsh. Some of it unfortunate because nature doesn't have the ability to respond to the rate of sea level rise. But I think certainly some type of condition along those lines would make some sense.
So, yeah, just looking at this plan here with the idea that I was kicking around with Sam, let's just say, this first set of piles, that slopes away, right? And, it doesn't make sense anymore to have those piles in a sliding marsh, right? Rather than coming back in and going over this discussion again, perhaps to sort of put on the plan, a plan B location, if the sea level rises, if the marsh slips in between, say a granting and a renewal of a permit, in that window that happens, have a pre-approved location that would,
Brian, I don't think you want to do that just because you don't know what it's going to look like around it. I think you want to be able to
right,
survey
agreed.
the current, that at the time that you start saying this thing's going to go, you want to know what things look like then. I think trying to plan for that right now is just not an efficient use of time and resources.
Right.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I absolutely. It's just that I also don't want to approve something and then have it locked in place because that is the approved plan set and you can't do anything about it, right? Because
we have a condition that when I think that the condition you have saying they have to come back in and for any changes.
Right, it would require an amendment of the plan.
Right. I think if what you're talking about is after you approve it and we go out to install it and conditions have changed, I think we would just agree to a condition that basically says that if conditions are not as shown on the plan at the time of installation, we need to come back and amend the decision.
Yeah.
Right. I think that deals with that. I think the longer term thing, you can't predict where it's going to cleave, how far it's going to cleave, what's going to happen. I think that needs a review by the commission because it may very well be that it has to move significantly, or it may be that you just shorten that drop down ramp part of it and adjust it. I mean, we just don't know, but it's a 5 acre or whatever 4 acre parcel here with plenty of shoreline. There's plenty of alternatives where it could be moved given different scenarios, but maybe not all scenarios. And I think that's why it just would need review and approval from the commission at that point.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to try to work with Sam to try to come up with some language that achieves, I think, the goal you're trying to get, but gives it, I think we can't try to predict how this thing's going to look because of sea level rise and, and people getting up on a plane and flying down a creek that's maybe too small for it, from wake damage and things like that. We just don't know.
No, I mean, that's fine. My try to oversimplify and actually get it into a nugget. I don't want the ground shifting under the literal dock to get stuck in the process, right? I'd like to be able to fix the problem without causing more of a problem, without, having it stuck out there,
Right.
Making things worse perhaps, or suffering by the things sliding out from under it.
Right. Well, and another,
that's fine. Yeah.
Right. Another way that we could do this would be that require a partial certificate of compliance be issued or applied for the first season this is put in, and then require a final be submitted in the third year, right? And require that have a full comprehensive review by the commission of the conditions at the time. And that way, it's kind of like we get a check-in 3 years of here's how the thing's doing. The nice thing about these helical things is they can be screwed in they can be screwed out. So again, I think that might be your partial certificate confirms that things were done per plan, and your final certificate evaluates the ecological conditions at the time, and you still have the perpetual annual reporting and other perpetual conditions that can be added.
All right. Well, anyway, that's all that I've got on my mind, and I don't know the constructive thoughts, but that's what I'm seeing.
Is there anyone from the public here? Anna, are you here for this, or are you just observing? I don't know who this is. Anybody going once, twice, three times? Okay. Any other commission members have anything to say about this? Okay, great. I would say then that hopefully Mary will have a chance to view this recording, review the plans, and have any questions for Tom and Steve on the June 7th meeting. I can probably make it by 8:15 on the 7th, but I won't. I have a business meeting from 7 to 8.
Okay, I'm also in Newburyport that night, so if we could just put me at the end of the agenda here, and I'll try to work the beginning of the agenda over there.
And we do have quite a few new things that are going to be on the agenda for that night, so I'm pretty sure that we would be able to stretch it out to at least 8:15.
Right, and the other thing I'd like to invite is if Mary, in reviewing the meeting minutes and the hearing minutes and the hearing tape, has any questions that she thinks would be helpful for us to try to address prior to that meeting, if she could send them to us through Sam, so that it's not ex parte, and then we can try to make sure that we make any plan updates so that we just don't drag this on past the next meeting if we can avoid.
And so you're going to show changes to the erosion control, and you're going to show changes to, or you're going to show an updated low tide angle on the gangway. Those are the two plan changes we should be seeing for the 7th.
Yes. Right. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to come up with more of a BMP notes for controlling any kind of disturbed soil that involves salt marsh, and we're just going to get rid of perimeter controls. Does that, and if for any reason at the next hearing the commission determines that we need some type of erosion control, that could be conditioned.
Yeah. And I strongly, for some reason, I bet you'll agree, Tom, that I strongly suspect this is the type of thing Mary will have an informed opinion about.
100%. And if Mary does have strong opinion one way or the other, or a suggestion that she could feed to us through Sam.
Yeah, I think that we should probably bullet that as something that Mary should think about and get a comment to Tom as soon as she can.
Right.
I can send her an email about that and let her know.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Motion to continue.
Thank you, Pedro. Do I have a second? Okay. In that case, Dan.
Yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Brian.
Steve.
And affirmative for myself. Thank you very much,
and I appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, Steve, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
And thank you, guys. I'm going to leave now.
All right. And Brian, thank you very much for taking the time to attend this.
Yeah. All right. Good night.
Take care.
Peter, your honor is your honor.
I'm sorry, say again, sir?
Your honor, your honor.
Yes, what would you like, sir?
Maybe a motion to.
Oh, a motion to continue. I thought I said that.
No.
We're all done.
On.
We're all done, Peter.
Oh, then a motion to
Go home.
let's continue this for just a few more moments. Dan, what would you like to say?
Start with an A word,
And I guess a motion to adjourn then.
Second.
I guess I have to go ahead with the desires of the commission. Dan. Yes. We all say yes. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. a
All right, good
wonderful
night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.